Cool, looks like we're up and running. So hey everyone, welcome to today's webinar. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ben again, the Global Marketing Director here at Dacxi. So today we're going to talk about what's next for the Dacxi chain and the Dacxi Coin. In terms of some housekeeping, if you have any questions during the presentation, please send them via the chat and we'll have time for a short Q&A at the end of the session. We'll also be sending out a recording at the end of tomorrow, so look out for that on our YouTube channel, and also we'll be sending it out via email. So don't worry if you miss anything. Hey guys, with that I'll hand over to our CEO Ian Lowe to take you through the presentation. Over to you, Ian.
Thanks very much, Ben. And just checking, technically we've got sound, everything's working, terrific, okay. Well, listen, welcome everybody. I've really been looking forward to sharing this presentation with you all. This is a presentation very much for the existing Dacxi community. So it's a presentation that's really targeted to the people that are part of our community, the people that already hold Dacxi Coin. And we've titled this presentation, What's Next? And I think you'll agree by the end of the presentation that hopefully that's a really appropriate title, because we want to talk a lot about what's coming, some of the key milestones to look for, but also a bit more detail around the Dacxi chain vision and some of the things that the progress that we've made and the things we're really focused on over the journey to make sure that we deliver on this phenomenal opportunity. So look, with that by way of preamble, let me launch straight in. So for many of you who've been on this journey with us now for a little while, you would have known that the vision for Dacxi chain right from the beginning was global crowdfunding through tokenization. This idea that we could extend the opportunity for crowdfunding great businesses and entrepreneurs. We could fund those ideas through a token, and that tokenizing crowdfunding turned that into a global opportunity. And look, you'll be pleased to know that that vision not only has not changed, it has never changed. That has always been the vision. And despite the fact that we've refined a number of areas along the way in terms of how we're going to execute against this vision, the vision's never changed. So many of you will recall what we're sort of calling Dacxi 1.0, which was this idea of a global network of Dacxi platforms, a community exchange that helps people build wealth through crypto. And then this crypto VC was the language that we used very early on, this crypto VC coin-based crowdfunding. So the idea that we would bring this concept of crypto VC or tokenized crowdfunding into, or bring it to life through our global network of Dacxi platforms and our community exchange that already helps people build wealth through crypto. And of course, Dacxi Coin 1.0 is still very much a community currency. And so what we mean by that is that coin has been used to build the community, to reward and incentivize the community. And it's also been used to attract and incentivize the staff that do the work to realize the vision. So many of you will be familiar with this. This is the Dacxi 1.0, or the starting point to this vision of global tokenized crowdfunding, this vision that remains exactly the same vision today. Since then, just an enormous amount of work has been done, and this is a summary of some of the milestones. And when we sat down to try and summarize these, we ended up with a very long list. So this is a subset of that list, and I think some of the more significant milestones since we started this journey. I'll quickly go through these. I won't expand on them in too much detail, but we've obviously built a blockchain investment platform with full digital wallet technology. We've built this network of investment platforms, this idea of multiple exchanges in different parts of the world. They're linked to external liquidity providers. We've linked to multiple jurisdiction KYC solutions to make sure that we're compliant with regulations, and also to providers such as Chainlink. We operate internal token custody solutions. They're also linked to external custody providers. We've conducted a global ICO token sale. We've launched Ethereum-based tokens with smart contracts. We've launched match basis trading exchange technology. We've dealt with regulators in 9 countries. We've done full security auditing. I think what you're seeing from this is that we've covered an enormous amount of ground to this point in time. But I think the really important point is that every single one of those milestones is incredibly relevant skill and experience that we've developed to execute on the Dacxi chain vision. So in other words, all of the things that we've achieved to this point in time are 100% aligned with where we need to go to bring the Dacxi chain vision to life. And so one of the ways that we might think about this is that we've built the business globally, and we've accumulated unique experience in the process of doing that as it relates to the Dacxi chain vision and executing on that vision. So incredibly important that we take into account not just these milestones as they relate to where we are today, but where that gets us in the future as we focus on delivering on the enormous potential of Dacxi chain. Of course, one of the challenges for us, like any business, is that we need to evolve and evolve with the market and evolve with the times. This is a cheeky reference to Netflix. Many of you will know that Netflix started life as a CD mailing company where they were essentially a mail order business where they would send you out a movie on a CD in the post. And of course, they evolved with the market as the technology and the infrastructure became game-changing. They took advantage of that to evolve with the market. And so we've done the same thing. As the market has evolved around us, we've made some refinements to our model, and I'm going to share some of that with you today. Just by way of background, this sort of word revolution is something that's used a lot and sometimes not accurately. But 2021 was a revolution as it relates to the realization, the global awakening, if you like, to the reality of the tokenization revolution. That's what we're referring to here. And so what this chart represents is there's a number of well-established organizations, the big global consulting groups, a number of finance institutions that have gone out and looked at tokenization to try and quantify not just the opportunity, but what that opportunity looks like over time. And there's a number of sources that are all providing very similar numbers. And essentially, what we've got to is the realization that the tokenization of various asset classes is going to become a $20+ trillion industry this decade. This particular projection has got a $24 trillion, that's US dollars, $24 trillion industry by 2027. Boston Consulting Group have come out more recently with a number approaching 20 trillion. So we can talk about whether it's 20 trillion or 24 trillion, but I think the orders of magnitude is really the message here. And so as we looked at this and as the market starts to develop and the sheer scale of the market for tokenization becomes clear, we've decided that we really need to move forward with 2 separate divisions within Dacxi. One is focused on the wealth market and the model for success in that market as tokenization expands is obviously going to start to incorporate all sorts of asset classes, equities, bonds, and property down the track. So the sheer scale of that opportunity means that the wealth business really needs to be a standalone business that can run its own race and provide those solutions. And then crowdfunding, we believe it's a $1 trillion market. And the data that you're looking at here, and I'm going to expand on this through the presentation, bears that out. That's not a number that we've invented. These are numbers that are coming from trusted advisors to the industry in terms of the market opportunity for tokenization, and in particular, the tokenization of unlisted equity, which is, of course, the space in which crowdfunding sits. So the sheer scale of the tokenization opportunity has demanded that we refine the way that we think about the Dacxi business. The wealth model demands its own, it has to stand on its own 2 feet as a wealth business, just due to the sheer scale, and the crowdfunding opportunity is phenomenally exciting. So what I'm going to talk about today, of course, is Dacxi Chain, and the language here is important. We've talked in the past about equity crowdfunding. We've talked about tokenized crowdfunding, combinations thereof. In the end, the tokenization is the instrument. What it creates is global crowdfunding, and it's the global crowdfunding I want to focus on in this presentation. Tokenization is incredibly important. It's the mechanism that achieves the global crowdfunding, but it is ultimately the global crowdfunding that is the vision. And so let's look at this in the context of entrepreneurs and early stage businesses that are looking for funding and the role that crowdfunding plays in that ecosystem today. So early stage funding is a generally accepted term in the capital markets. And it's really about providing growth capital for companies that sit anywhere in this journey that you see represented through these different steps, from the seed stage right through to a Series A stage. And so these are businesses that have been validated in some way. They're looking to take the next step. They're looking to grow, and they've got a good understanding of their market opportunity, and they have a strategy. So they've been validated to that point. But given that they've still got the majority of their growth ahead of them, they're higher risk and higher return businesses, fundamentally. And early stage businesses today are funded by venture capital. A much smaller amount is funded through angel networks, and of course, equity crowdfunding. So let's take a look at those segments, starting with venture capital. So global early stage funding in 2021 through venture capital is a $232 billion market. And you can see it represented in the chart here as the blue and the green parts of the bar chart at the bottom. And you can see that it's grown by 80% in 2021 versus the year prior. So this is a large and growing market, I think is probably an understatement. Of course, there are some very significant issues that remain in the venture capital segment, particularly for those that participate. So entrepreneurs, for a start, who are building businesses and looking for that growth capital, they are losing control by virtue of the fact that the VCs represent 98% of the available capital. So 98% of the capital that's flowing into growth businesses today comes through VCs, which means that VCs have all of the control. They have all of the leverage, not only in just how much of those innovation opportunities are funded, but also the terms under which they invest. And so that has real implications for the entrepreneur and their ability to maintain control of their business. One of the other big issues is that the retail investor, and by retail investor, we're talking about the everyday investor, they really miss out. We believe there's at least 100 million of these retail investors that have something around about $1 trillion to invest globally. And they are just simply missing out. They just do not have a seat at the table. The 98% that's being soaked up through VCs is actually flowing to a very small number of companies in a very small number of locations. And of course, the outcome of those 2 points is that most of the innovation opportunities where growth funding is required, they're either underfunded or they're entirely unfunded. And VC investment, of course, is highly concentrated. So that $232 billion of investment represents 24,000 approximately 24,000 individual deals or companies that have been invested in. Now that sounds like a big number, but of course the reality is that the number of companies out there that are looking for growth funding is 10 times that or larger. So in other words, we've got a market that is essentially underfunded with a concentration of the dollars coming from one source only, being venture capital, and a significant amount of the innovation opportunities that require growth funding are either underfunded or unfunded. And so this in some ways explains both the limitations of the VC model, but also the enormous potential and opportunity for crowdfunding if it can achieve scale. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that as we go. So by comparison, equity funding today, I think we all understand the principles here. It's really about connecting deals that are being offered by entrepreneurs to a retail investor pool, the crowd. Now this is done under an equity crowdfunding license. So crowdfunding businesses that operate around the world, the vast majority of them need to operate under licenses that are issued by local regulators in those countries. There are 97 countries that have equity crowdfunding regulations, just to put some perspective around that. And equity crowdfunding has achieved something around about $1.6 billion of funding in 2021. And it's growing. It's growing at around about 20%. Clearly not to the same extent that venture capital is growing. And of course, the 1.6 billion is compared to the 232 billion that comes out of venture capital. So a massive gap between the VC capital and what equity crowdfunding is achieving today. In addition to that, the equity crowdfunding market is going through a consolidation. This is really to achieve the sort of scale that they need to be able to compete with venture capital. So scale is all about saying we've got more investment opportunities, we've got a larger crowd of investors. And what that does is it means there's more capital available. It makes it easier to raise money for growth companies through equity crowdfunding. And it also means that that process is faster and easier. So really important distinctions that we get to through scale and why the equity crowdfunding market today is going through this consolidation process. So when we talk about, so that's a little bit about venture capital, a little bit about equity crowdfunding today. What Dacxi Chain is about global crowdfunding. So equity crowdfunding today is by definition local. It operates in a discrete market. The companies that are being invested in are within that market, domiciled within that market. The crowd that invests in those local businesses are local, and they operate a local ecosystem. Blockchain is the game changer, because what blockchain achieves is it solves the scaling problem by allowing us to link multiple local investor pools. So we can start to connect each of these local markets with their pools, their investor pools, and their entrepreneur opportunities. We can start to connect those into one global ecosystem. And that's possible only because of blockchain. So by virtue of tokenizing local equity crowdfunding, what we create is global equity crowdfunding. And so that is the Dacxi Chain purpose, is to realize this opportunity, this unique opportunity, this phenomenally large opportunity that is to globalize equity crowdfunding, and to achieve that through the innovation of blockchain, because blockchain is a borderless construct. Okay. So the way to think about, or another way to think about global crowdfunding as it relates to scale, is that we create this network effect across all of the different sources of crowdfunding that exist today. So the critical distinction here is that under the original model, what we plan to do is to bring global crowdfunding to life through our own network of platforms, and by virtue of that, to effectively become another crowdfunding platform in the process that was global. The difference here, the refinement that we've made, is a really critical refinement that opens up the opportunity in a much more compelling way, which is that we are a technology that will allow those crowdfunding sources to become interconnected as a global network on an infrastructure that is provided by Dacxi. So the Dacxi chain is not about becoming a global crowdfunding platform. It's about enabling the crowdfunding global community to achieve scale through our infrastructure and through the mechanism of blockchain. So hopefully that distinction is clear. It's a really important distinction. This is the game changer. This concept around building a network effect and providing the infrastructure, the technical infrastructure that allows the crowdfunding community today to transition from being only local to being genuinely global. And that is the technology that we're building, and that is the solution that we are bringing to market. This slide really just articulates the idea that, something that we've realized now for a little while, which is that the solution that tokenization provides crowdfunding, and it's the ability for it to achieve scale and to become genuinely global through blockchain. This is happening. This is a reality. We are pioneering it. We are the first. And so with that comes enormous opportunity, and we're clearly very, very motivated and excited about that. But the idea of tokenizing unlisted equity, I mean, we can see from the previous charts we looked at, that's happening anyway. That's happening with or without Dacxi. Our seat at the table, our unique opportunity is that we are pioneering the leveraging of blockchain technology to tokenize crowdfunding to make it a global ecosystem. And so I guess what we're saying is the journey that we're on is inevitable. We've just got a unique opportunity as the first and as the pioneers to take advantage of that opportunity. If we look at the market potential for global crowdfunding, just to put some perspective on this. So this is the same chart that I shared earlier, but you can see over in orange, you can see a $1 trillion market, which is unlisted equity. So that is the space in which crowdfunding obviously sits. And that's a $1 trillion market by 2027. So it just puts it in perspective in terms of just the sheer magnitude of the stage on which we stand and the sheer magnitude of the opportunity that we're chasing. And with that, even modest success, we believe, translates to something incredibly exciting. $1 trillion in tokenized unlisted equities, as you can see in the orange band in that chart. We looked at the 24,000 deals coming out of VCs. Very conservatively, we believe that fully realized, global crowdfunding should deliver 10 times that, conservatively. Now, not every single one of those opportunities is right for global equity crowdfunding, only a subset. So again, if we conservatively said that 50,000 of those deals are really well suited to global crowdfunding, then really what we're saying is it's a $100 billion per annum market opportunity, or roughly 100 times the size that it is today. So just to restate the key points there, the market opportunity is a $1 trillion market by 2027. And these are numbers that are not coming from us, they're coming from independent sources. And by virtue of that, conservatively, the global crowdfunding market should be by then worth 100 times what it is today, or in excess of $100 billion. So it's a very real objective with a very significant prize. Back to some of the points I made earlier around the journey that we've been on to this point, and it's given us unique skills, experience, and capabilities in the process of building out the network of wealth platforms that we already have today. So the technology that will underpin the Dacxi chain, this infrastructure that we allow the ecosystem to plug into to achieve becoming global and achieve the scale that that offers, is really a 3-layered stack of technology. So I'm not going to sort of start pulling this apart in detail, that's for another time. But those 3 layers consist of an application layer. So this is a global information system where the application actually sits and holds certain information as it relates to the investment opportunities that are available. There's a transaction layer. This is how ownership and payments are going to be exchanged between the investor and the investee meaning the entrepreneur or the growth company that's listed through the platform. And then the blockchain layer. And this is where the transaction and the ownership and all the verification takes place. And so again, our experience in all three of these areas, by virtue of everything we've done to this point, is perfectly aligned with executing the Dacxi chain opportunity. On top of that, it's just worth reminding you that the underlying blockchain technology that we're leveraging here has multiple use cases. It's not just about tokenization of equity ownership. It's not just as a cryptocurrency payment solution. There's a whole range of other use cases for blockchain, which all have a role to play as the Dacxi chain opportunity starts to emerge and develop and mature and grow and scale. So the opportunity for us to start to leverage the underlying blockchain technology across this broader spectrum of use cases is enormously exciting. And we've got a lot of ideas and plans for how we want to leverage the full extent of those blockchain capabilities. So look, in all of this, there are winners, and you know the winners are many. From an investor's perspective, globalizing equity crowdfunding means they now have access to a global catalog of investment opportunities. That means they're much more likely to find investment opportunities they understand and are excited about and motivated to invest in. We can also customize those opportunities for individual investors. So based on their preferences and their interests, possibly even their investment objectives, we can start to customize the sorts of investment opportunities that are being exposed at an individual level. And of course, all of that is happening through a local and regulated platform. So again, we're not going out to build our own crowdfunding platform that competes with other crowdfunding platforms. Our job is to be the glue through the technical infrastructure that allows all of them to connect to create this global ecosystem. For entrepreneurs, it means access to a global funding market, absolutely game-changing. They don't have to travel the path well-traveled to VCs, where it's ultra competitive for that capital, and the terms on which those deals are done are often onerous. It means they have options and control around how they grow their business that they've never had before. They maintain strategic control of the business in the process. And of course, they're accumulating along the way an investor community, which can support them in all sorts of ways as that business evolves. Even governments are the winners. So governments are particularly keen to understand how they best protect investors in their own countries, obviously. And our platform will act as an additional independent validation of the investment opportunity. So we will run a rigorous due diligence process as part of the platform we provide, the infrastructure that we provide, to make sure that the investment opportunities that are exposed through this global capability are validated. And so that provides additional protection for investors. And of course, the other thing is that as we start to grow the amount of investment or capital that's investing in growth opportunities through this global ecosystem, early stage investing creates jobs, which is sometimes referred to as inward investment. This idea that the capital that's finding its way to the growth company is essentially being repurposed within that local economy. So the winners really cover the full spectrum of the various participants or stakeholders. I want to talk very quickly about the journey. So where we are today is what we're describing the pre-launch stage. So we're talking with our community, we're talking with people that own Dacxi Coin, we're talking about where we're going and providing a bit more detail about the strategy, the model, and the key milestones along the way. We're going to do all of that much more publicly in November of this year. So there'll be a launch announcement. We'll start to open up the discussion on a more public level. Today is not that launch. Today is really a pre-launch for people in the community and the coin owners, and that launch announcement will come in November. We're obviously incredibly excited about that. Then as we move into next year, we're going to be announcing first deals. We're going to be building out that global network of participants in that ecosystem, that global ecosystem. And as we move into 2024, it's really about building the momentum of that. So expanding that global network, expanding the universe of participation, growing the number of deals, growing the volume and value of capital that's flowing through that platform, that ecosystem. So these are some of the really important milestones over the next little while. You can expect us to be coming back and sharing more with you in terms of these key milestones and providing further updates along the way. But this is one of the ways to help you frame how you think about the time frame and the sequence of developments for Dacxi Chain. I'm delighted to confirm that we also have a new website. It's just been launched, dacxichain.com. I'd encourage you all to go and take a look at it. It's got a lot of detail on the site, some of which I've covered today, a lot of additional detail around the vision, the strategy, the technology platform, and where that gets us, and where that gets the industry at a global level. So I'd really encourage all of you to go and take a look at the website. There's an enormous amount of information on there, not just on Dacxi Chain, but quite obviously also some information on Dacxi Coin specifically. We've also got a video which I'd like to play for you briefly. It's not very long, but this is also available on the new Dacxi Chain website. I'll just play this for you quickly.
Out there somewhere, there's a new idea that will change the world. But there's not just one. There are 2, 3, hundreds and thousands of entrepreneurs actively working on brilliant innovations that could make the world a better place. Except they won't. Not without access to early stage funding. The vast majority of early stage innovation is funded by venture capitalists. But for the vast majority of early stage entrepreneurs, this simply won't work. The pool of available funding is far too small. The risk of handing over control of your company is far too great. And the barrier for everyday retail investors is far too high. Crowdfunding could and should be the solution. But today's crowdfunding system is broken. It's local, not global. It lacks scale, and it fails to connect entrepreneurs with the right investors. Where there should be open doors, there's nothing but closed barriers. But there's a revolutionary new solution. It's called the Dacxi Chain, and it's going to unleash the true potential of crowdfunding. The Dacxi Chain is the world's first global equity crowdfunding network. For entrepreneurs, it'll provide access to a ready-made global pool of potential investors. And for investors, it'll unlock opportunities that could change their financial future forever. For the first time, entrepreneurs and investors will be directly connected. It's crowdfunding without barriers, with a bigger crowd, better ideas, and more opportunities. Unleashing innovation's extraordinary potential, so it can change the world for the better. Dacxi Chain, the world's first global tokenized crowdfunding network.
Okay, so I think that captures the key points and obviously some of the excitement around just the sheer magnitude of the opportunity. I'm going to finish off with just a couple of slides here, more specific to Dacxi Coin, because obviously this updates on Dacxi Chain, but also we want to talk a little bit about Dacxi Coin. So the use cases around Dacxi Coin are probably understood by many of you, but this is a summary here that's probably just worth quickly covering off. So the first is as a transactional currency. And we've used an example here of Ripple, which again will be known to many of you. It's a purpose-built transactional currency for the finance industry globally. So in the same way that Dacxi is a purpose-built transactional currency for global equity crowdfunding. Blockchain currency, like Ether, for example, that again, all of you will be familiar with, the payment of blockchain fees, node staking, and government. So again, this is something that is a really obvious use case as we get into launching Dacxi Chain for Dacxi Coin, is as a blockchain currency. Also as an exchange currency, allowing global transactions on tokenized secondary exchanges. This is one of the significant benefits of tokenizing what are otherwise privately held businesses, is this concept of liquidity, where those tokens can now be traded on secondary exchanges, whereas previously that equity would have been locked away. And community currency as well, allowing for community development and e-commerce. And we've talked about where we are today with Dacxi Coin as a community currency. So these are the primary use cases. It's not just one or two use cases. There are multiple use cases for the Dacxi Coin in the context of everything we've presented today. Very importantly, what does this all do for coin demand in terms of the Dacxi Chain global equity crowdfunding opportunity? So coin demand is principally around this concept of being a transactional currency. So if we go back to some of the numbers here, thousands of deals on a monthly basis means that we're raising millions of dollars per deal. If we multiply that by 1,000 deals, it comes to billions of dollars in investment. So thousands of transactions per deal times thousands of deals equals millions of individual transactions. And of course, we have a fixed supply of the coin. So our expectation is that as we build the global network, and as that grows and we gather momentum and the deal flow starts to increase, that clearly the fixed coin supply in the context of a growing demand for the coin, the volume of transactions, the value of those transactions, our expectation is that the coin will become very valuable. And this has always been, again, the vision for Dacxi Chain and Dacxi Coin, and none of that has changed. I think what this slide does, is puts it very much into context in terms of the investment opportunity around Dacxi Coin based on the volume of those transactions and the value of those transactions as we transition to a global dynamic for equity crowdfunding. So really, that's a really important slide. Just to finish up, we've talked previously about coin listings, so additional listings for Dacxi Coin. We continue really to be focused on the tier 1 exchanges. That has not changed. That's never changed. It's just a process that we need to go through to get to the point where we're ready for that. And the public announcement that I indicated we would make towards the end of this year in November, our intention is to apply for tier 1 exchange listings after we make that announcement. So clearly we'll share more when more becomes available, but I just wanted to cover those headlines. Tier 1 exchanges, our focus on those is unchanged, and we'll start to ramp up our application process with those exchanges after we've made the public announcement in November. So look, that's the presentation. I really appreciate the opportunity to share it with all of you. Hopefully this puts a lot more context around and detail around the whole opportunity. And this last slide, the next stage begins, I think is absolutely